we're constantly chasing a feeling, an emotional fix, and we usually turn to physical, tangible things that we think are going to make us feel that way, right? As you said, like, really what I'm trying to do is lower stress. And I've just created the mechanism to think, if I want to lower stress, I need to indulge in ice cream. And that's the connection we've made. Whereas, like you're saying, there's so many other ways. And actually, it could be a natural source of sugar. It could be a low sugar product if that's what you're after. It could be, as you said, a yoga session, breath work, whatever it may be. Now, what I find though is that when you first try and make that change, it literally feels like you're fighting against yourself, right? It almost feels like there's this internal battle. And I'm at the point now, having worked on some of these things for a while, I'm at a point now where I believe my taste buds have actually changed.
Exactly.
The feeling and the desire has evolved and I'm able to deal with it in a healthier way. But there's that middle part where you feel like you're just like, come on, I've got to give in. I've got to give in.
Yeah. You said two key words there for me. And these are the two missing words, I think, in behavior change. Internal struggle. This is really what I'm trying to get across to people. Every single behavior is downstream, usually from something inside you. Mm-hmm. And we're living in a world where we want to consume more and more information, get more and more knowledge, which is helpful up to a point. Now, I'll come back to that point because I think it's a really important one. I just want to address what you said about it feeling difficult. Out of those three Fs, the most important F is the first one. Why? Because it suddenly just breaks you out of your repetitive cycle. I feel stressed, I want some ice cream, I go to the freezer, and before I know it, I've had half the tub. That is very, very common. You think that's who you are. It's not who you are, it's who you've become. And you can unbecome it if you start to do that first F. It is simply the knowledge that I can take a pause. There is a gap between the stimulus and the response. When you are repeating your behaviors day to day, when they become habits, whether good habits or unhealthy habits, there's no gap. There's a feeling, there's a stimulus, and there's a response, usually an unhealthy response in this current climate, right, for many people. So that first F creates a gap. Now, people will often say, yes, Dr. Shashi, but, and then now that I'm aware, so what? What can I do? I'm like, wait a minute. 90% of change, in my experience, is that first F, is understanding, oh, this is why I'm going to it. Mm-hmm. Sure, it may take you a few weeks, it may take a few months to really work on that relationship and start to tweak it, because how long did it take you to develop this relationship? Maybe you've been using sugar to manage stress for 20 years. You're not going to change that in 1 week in January just because you wake up thinking, I want to make this year the best year of my life. You're not going to. It is a process of change, but what people miss, Jay, for me, is that process where you learn what this behavior is doing for you, you struggle, you sometimes can't make the change that you want, other times you can. That process is where the gold is. That's when you're learning about yourself. That's when you get the mastery about yourself. Oh, I always, when I have a row with my partner, I don't feel good. So yeah, I want sugar. Or when I'm alone or I'm traveling for work and I'm away from my wife and my kids, that's when I just want to spend 3 hours on Instagram because I'm looking for connection. That's where the gold lies. And for me, Jay, the most important chapter in this book is chapter 1, which is called Trust Yourself. And I don't think we're talking about this enough in the health and wellness space. People are getting confused, right? You must get this on your show like I do on my podcast, right? This idea that despite our best efforts at trying to navigate the complexity, what I often find, Jay, is people will say to me, not often, but it happens enough that I know that this is an issue. Dr. Shashi, 2 months ago, you had this credentialed expert from Harvard, and they said this diet is really good, like a ketogenic diet is really good for mental health. And they sound really trustworthy. They've got all the credentials, and they've quoted 4 or 5 research studies to back up what they think. And I thought, okay, amazing. And then last week, you spoke to another doctor, also well-credentialed, who said, no, a vegan diet or a whole food plant-based diet is best for mental health. and presented 5 studies to support what they have to say. Now, people would contact me and say, Dr. Chatterjee, I'm really confused, right? Both of those experts, they sound great. They've all got research to back up what they're saying. I don't know which expert to trust. And Jay, what I've realized is that's the wrong question. The more helpful question, the more powerful question is not which expert should I trust? It's why do I no longer trust myself?
Yeah.
That is the magic to behavior change. You have to start tuning into the signals your body is giving you. So using that example, I would say to someone, hey, I tell you what, why do you have to choose which one's right? Maybe they're both right for certain people, but they're not right for anyone, right? And so I would say, okay, try this expert's diet for 4 weeks. And whilst you're trying it, pay attention. Pay attention to what's going on. What's your energy like? What's your vitality? How are your relationships? How's your sleep? How's your focus? How's your concentration? Pay attention. I go, okay, I tried that for 4 weeks. Now, let me try this other person's diet for 4 weeks. And again, pay attention. I promise, if you start paying attention, you'll very quickly find out what is the right diet for you at that moment in your life. Mm-hmm. And I feel that we're not talking about this enough. We're still, we've got to a point, Jay, where we've outsourced our own inner expertise to external experts. I'm not saying ignore external experts, right? You have some great experts on your show each week. I have some great experts on my podcast each week. But you should listen to their advice and put it through your own filter, and then you figure out what works for you. And honestly, if you would say, what is the key thing you've learned in 23 years of seeing patients? I've seen tens of thousands of patients. I've learned many things, but I would say no one approach works for everyone. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't. And when we try and make it work for everyone, it's a problem because people feel like failures.
Yeah.